Okay, welcome. We're playing for novicechess.com. We're playing a lower rated opponent, and we're going to try to see what he can improve or what he did really well if he beats me, which is always a possibility. Let's not discount that. So, okay, he's playing a system here, the so-called Torre Attack, and I'm going to fianchet settle this bishop, but I'm just going to go for fluid development. I take here because I want him to take with the e-pawn, which it does. Bishop e7 and get quick development. Actually, bishop here first. Now we castle. Our opponent is playing a setup which is quite solid, so we can't really find any faults in his play so far. No mistakes, but my yeah, what I would point out though is not play too fast. Okay, now he's finally taking his time. So this kind of system, the Torre Attack or the London system, I mean, people talk against it sometimes, but it's quite fine. I mean, here white has got a middle game, which is equal, maybe even slightly better for white. And that's often quite an achievement and nothing to sneer at. I'm thinking about kicking the knight. It's not really necessary. I'm going to play queen c6 instead. So we're just lining up our queen and our bishop here on this diagonal, pointing down to the g2 square. So moving the knight on f3 is going to be tricky. I do have my rook here lined up against the white queen, so I want to open up this file here and try to play e5, and now might actually be a good time. And note that he can't take twice and take with a knight. Well, first of all, that would lose material, and second of all, remember this threat to the g2 pawn, which is checkmate. Okay, it takes once, which is fine. I'm going to take with a pawn, with in some cases ideas of pushing it. So I'm wondering, I'm just going to check if okay, he's played 705 games. I was actually thinking he might be stronger than his rating suggested. Okay, 94. Certainly nothing wrong with that move. Thinking I might want to go knight d5 and put it into f4, this juicy square right here. Yeah, so a little tip there, you know. I could go for the trade, like take, bishop takes, and we have some exchanges, but quite often the best course of action is not to trade. Give your opponent options. He goes bishop c3. And maybe f5 even. Knight g5, e4. Let's go for that. I don't see how it deals with the simple threat of giving a pawn fork here. He plays c4, he tries to counter, but I can actually play knight f4, attack the queen. He takes, I take back, and now the knight is actually pinned against the queen. It looks like a nice situation for black. We can pre-move taking here, because we're opening up this relationship here that we introduced when we played bishop f8. Note that I have calculated in case of knight f6, I can take with my knight, and I've added protection to the rook on e8. So that's what I'm going to do here. His queen is still attacked. I have won a piece. I can place my knight on a nice square here on e4. My bishop comes to c5 on the next move if he does nothing. And all in all, life is great, huh? Right. So let's go queen over to g6 now. Hoping to get some action going again here against the g2 square. Also, we do keep an eye here on e4. So once he takes, we can take back with the pawn. And I've spotted a mate pattern that might crop up here. Let's see if we can execute. If he takes, bishop takes, king to the corner. Let's hope we can whip up some magic there. Okay. I'm going for this. And I want to give a queen sacrifice. It's not a real sacrifice per se. But let's see what happens. He plays a rook there, and now we're going to see it. He's going to capture my bishop. Thinking I blundered because I moved relatively fast. He will, however, meet the mate pattern that we talked about. Queen takes h2 and rook h6. Pawn stopping the king from coming over here, and the bishop stopping it from coming over here. Let's have a quick look. If he takes, rook h6. Blocked by the pawn, bishop, pawn. You can only play bishop knight to h5, and now we take. So a cool ending. But I must say I was impressed by my opponent's early game here. And yeah, normally I don't recommend really learning specific opening theory, but sometimes setups like this, the Torre Attack, as you can see here, e46, Torre Attack. This or bishop f4, which is the London system, very similar. They just give white a solid position. I mean, he's going to play just like he did in the game. He's going to play e3, c3. That was a crooked c3, c3, bishop to d3, knight b to d2, and castles. All the pieces are out, everything is solid, and he's gotten castled. That's exactly what it did. I went with a little bit restrained but very solid setup. Bishop e7. Again, I'm ready to castle. Quick development, and ready to castle. Note also that after bishop e7, knight d2, castles, d6. Okay, he's moving more or less according to his opening scheme. But we do have, although we do have less space, we do have an extra pawn in the center of the board. So white's central control really isn't all that stable, and as you saw in the game, black will have his fair share of the chances. Rook e1. So he's played quite solid so far. Rook e1, knight bd7, queen e2. And again, these moves are quite common in the system. I play a6, as otherwise white might think about eliminating my strong bishop, which is on this nice diagonal. So that's why I play a6. He plays a3. Another solid move, not really necessary, but I mean, these pawns, they make a nice formation. They're on black squares and they complement this light squared bishop. And that sort of often translates into the endgame, where the former world champion Capablanca said you should keep your pawns on the opposite color of your bishop in the ending. That's a rule of thumb, but it doesn't always apply, but rules of thumb are still good. Anywho, rook f2 e8. And here queen c6, setting up this battery against the g2 square that we talked about. He retreated his knight, and now bishop f8. Getting ready to strike here in the center with e5. That's indeed what happened. And yeah, so far white really hasn't made any mistakes per se. He's still quite solid. If he wants to avoid any trouble, he can try to go for exchanges here with knight e4, something like this. And we could see the game transpose into a queenless middle game, like this. And white is still quite solid. So maybe rook c1 allowing e5 was the first sort of misstep by white, but still nothing serious. D takes e5, knight e4. He's still in the game, and maybe he's even doing well after. I mean, knight d5. It might be a little bit risky if he puts something on g5, either this knight or the other knight. And then we notice that he starts to point at our king with a lot of pieces. The queen might be ready to hop in. So I'm not all that sure that I'm actually even better here. But he went with the more restrained approach with bishop g3, but that allowed f5. So rook c1 was the first kind of inaccuracy, and then bishop g3 is a mistake, simply allowing us to play f5 and followed up by e4. c4 was probably also bad because you would like to have this square for your bishop. So maybe a move like knight g5 would have been better, and in case of this, something like this, and at least try to work with this pin. But after c4, I think it was well downhill for white. Knight f4, and we had this nice situation with the pin here on the queen. He tried to get out of it, but not possible. And now knight e4. Black is just up a piece, and when you're up a piece, ideally you'd like to go to the endgame, but you can also just improve your pieces, try to get them more active. I would like to get my bishop here. I would like to use this guy sometime. It didn't happen in the game, but that's just because I saw a specific idea. But in general, if you improve your pieces, get them more centralized, move them a little bit forward, you're going to have more force because you're a piece up, and you're going to try to use that force to get further material gain or to try to attack the king. So let's see what happened. Knight d4, the queen swung over to g6. Still keeping up the attack and also x-raying the e4 square in case of the pawn taken on e4. Keeping control. f3 and now bishop c5. A pin here that you can't really avoid. And after this I spotted the mating pattern. And that's why I moved my rook to e6 to be able to bring it to h6. And fortunately our opponent allowed us to find the mate. We played rook takes b7 and then the checkmate was delivered. So yeah, I mean, not as many mistakes as I would have liked for this to be an instructive video, but hopefully you still picked up something. And let's see if we find some more instructive examples in the next game. Thank you for watching. This is Fyrirmaster Ingvar Johannesson for NoviceChess.com. See you later.